This is Martin Giles of the Guildford Dragon News, and today I'm with Charlie Chirico, who was the Conservatives Police and Crime Commissioner candidate for the upcoming elections in May this year, and she was the Conservative candidate. Hi Charlie, thank you for joining the Guildford Dragon and giving your time to us this morning.
Good morning, Martin.
Right, so going back to your initial selection, what was it, do you think, that caused the Surrey Conservatives to select you rather than the incumbent, David Munro?
Well, I had no direct experience of David Munro at the time. I'd never met him before previously, but members and elected representatives in the Conservative Party had told me that they felt he hadn't been robust enough in terms of dealing with unauthorised encampments in Surrey, and that had caused some problems with the membership. In addition, at the time, he was the National Diversity Lead for the Police and Crime Commissioner Group, and I don't know whether that had put him in a difficult position.
Okay, and why did you withdrew actually twice from being the candidate? Can you give us, in summary, what the reasons were behind those withdrawals?
There were a number of reasons. So there was the level of personal sacrifice and personal reasons. So I'd left my stable and secure career in the civil service in February 2019 when I'd been selected as a Police and Crime Commissioner candidate. I had to do that almost immediately, and I'd planned for a 14-month campaign. When COVID hit in March, I then found myself without any secure and stable income. I'd already given up my job, and then the financial impact of that, as well as
sorry to interrupt there, but your job was quite relevant, wasn't it? Because you were with the prosecution service.
Absolutely, yes. At the time, before I was selected as the PCC candidate in Surrey, I'd spent 6 years working for the Crown Prosecution Service, mainly in Surrey and in London. So I had direct experience of the criminal justice system in both those areas, and I'd worked with 4 different police forces at the time. So I really wanted to effect strategic change, because on a ground level, I could see some of the issues that were occurring.
Okay. And sorry, you were saying how the reasons for your withdrawal twice. Is there any more you want to say on that?
Well, absolutely. So there's a personal commitment. I just couldn't keep going on, and also there's a possibility as well that the elections could be delayed again. I couldn't handle any more delays. In addition to that, there were also problems within my immediate campaign team, and I also felt the environment within Surrey had become more toxic than when I started. I was an outsider candidate initially anyway.
Sorry to interrupt again, but that word toxic, it's a strong word to use. Can you just explain why it was like that?
Well, I wouldn't describe everybody in Surrey Conservatives as toxic, but I think within my immediate campaign team, in hindsight, I don't think I would have selected a deputy candidate before the election. I've learned a lot about that. In addition, I felt that people that were working with me were actually working against me. So, for example, it was quite a fractious area to join as an outsider candidate. I didn't know many people in Surrey Conservatives when I started, but there were people that were still loyal to David Munro. There were also people that were incredibly loyal to Kevin Denis, and they wanted him to be the PCC.
Right, and we should explain that Kevin Denis was your nominated deputy, and also another who had stood as a candidate for the PCC role.
Absolutely. He was in the final selection with myself and David Munro. Kevin Denis actually came second in the original PCC selection for the Conservative Party in February 2019.
So you felt that he was undermining you?
At times, although I don't know whether undermining me is a strong word. I just felt that there were people that would have preferred him to have been the Police and Crime Commissioner candidate rather than me, and people that were loyal to him. So even before the February 29 PCC selection, when I was selected as a PCC candidate, there was a person in the Conservative Party that wrote to all the members in their association basically saying, "Back Kevin." So when I was selected, it wasn't necessarily an easy ride. Everybody was on board and pleased that I was selected, particularly as I was an outsider to Surrey Conservatives.
Okay, but that's quite surprising. I mean, Kevin Denis is a former policeman who has, been established within the Surrey Conservative setup for some time. So, but nonetheless, they selected you. So, wasn't there someone that could say, this is our selection, we've got to rally round?
I think a lot of people did, but there was still those divides and fractions and loyalists to other candidates. So I struggled with that.
Okay, now, what policies, having stood as a candidate, what policies did you identify that require changing or further attention to improve Surrey policing?
Well, I think the way that they dealt with unauthorised encampments, for example, one of my main policy points was actually that there would be an effective and robust police response. It would be same day. It would involve talking to both the settled community as well as the travelling community, and just ensuring that people felt reassured and confident in the police's ability to deal with it. That was one of my priorities. But also in terms of domestic abuse, particularly in light of COVID, I think it was really important that prevention and high risk individuals were identified and supported effectively during COVID. So that would have been something that would have been more at the forefront of my campaign, probably than anything else, because of the spiral in domestic abuse rate within the remit of national lockdowns and COVID, and the way that actually I think we've seen a rise globally as well, and within Surrey.
But do you think those two issues are top of the list of most Surrey residents' concerns when it comes to law and order?
Absolutely. I think domestic abuse, particularly in COVID times, is really on the forefront, which should be on the forefront of the community's minds. And I think one thing that we needed to tackle was the fact that many people thought it would be that the victim would always be female. I think we needed to change the stereotype and actually say, well, it can happen to any individual in any type of relationship. So really being effective and making sure that we're aware of all the different risk factors that come into play.
Okay, but what about things like, more run-of-the-mill, if you like, crimes like burglary or an assault or mugging? What about those?
I think all of those types of crimes are important. I think the job of the Police and Crime Commissioner is to make sure that they're all dealt with effectively. With burglaries in Surrey, it's dealing with the repeat offenders effectively, so making sure that the probation service, particularly if they're contracted out to another provider, are effective in making sure that those offenders are not slipping back into being a third strike burglar or consistently committing the same types of offences, and also to look at the root of the offending. So is it alcohol, is it drugs, is it financially related, and what more can we do in terms of mentoring and supporting offenders to make sure that they don't reoffend again. And time again, I've prosecuted in Surrey for a number of years. You've seen the same people in the same faces, and it's sad because you think, well, actually, what level of support did they get in order to prevent them reoffending?
Yes, a good point. Okay, now how do you see your political future now? Do you still feel you're a conservative? What are your ambitions now on the political front?
Well, I'm taking a break from politics. This has consumed 2.5 years of my life, and I need to focus on getting back into work, improving my financial situation, and also focusing on my personal life as well, because that was effectively on hold for 2 years. And whilst I'm disappointed as to what's happened, I need to look to the future and rebuild. So politics isn't at the forefront of my mind at the moment.
Okay, well, Charlie Chirico, thank you again for giving your time to the Guildford Dragon News this morning, and good luck with your future.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin.